We are back, and we're
Hey.
only back because of a special thing that just happened, or at least rumored to be happening, but it's a very, very, very strong rumor. And
Yeah, this is a special presentation.
I'm gonna let you say what the rumor is because you are way more into this. This is your guy, so
This is my guy.
you go for it.
Yeah, I mean it seems like the dream is happening. So finally, with months and years of back and forth, the Hollywood Reporter came out, Boris Kid today said WB is officially developing a sequel to The Man of Steel. And it's gonna have Henry Cavill, and the producer of Man of Steel, Charles Roven, is producing it, and they're looking for writers right now and a director. So
Okay,
I
so
mean, boom.
that's huge. And before we get into what I'm hoping you want to see in Man of Steel 2, how do you think this finally came about? Is the timing on this exactly what they wanted right before Black Adam comes out? Did they want the
Yeah,
hype going into it to even push Black Adam a little more, you think?
yeah. I mean, the timing for this to be released seems like, hey, WB said run this story, um, because I think Black Adam needs a little bit of hype, and yeah, I think they want to get some momentum going. There's been such a push for Henry Cavill. I mean, yeah, such a huge push not only for Superman to come back, but Henry Cavill, and for DC finally to get something going. And it does seem like we have The Rock to thank for most of this. So
Was all of this done before Comic-Con, you think?
it doesn't sound like it. It sounds to me like, it sounds to me like the deals were moving, and just they didn't have it in place yet. I think The Rock, if I have a suspicion, I think The Rock and his agent kind of leaked that they were hoping Henry Cavill would be there in order for the studio to kind of say, "Hey, okay, let's make a deal." But they probably weren't able to make a deal in time, and then that didn't happen. That's what I suspect.
Okay. So I'm trying to get my head because everything's done business wise. And I know you've heard the interviews from Dwayne Johnson about he hasn't actually said Henry Cavill, but he says he's not the strongest man in the universe, and it's about time he gets back into the game or whatever he says.
Right.
But he also said something very interesting that they got a new regime into DC that allowed these things to happen way more than the old regime.
Yeah.
If he
I
has
mean,
been talking for years with the old regime, how I mean, he's got to be one of the happiest guys that a new one finally came in.
yeah, I agree. It's like they wanted to kind of vilify Toby Emmerich and Walter Hamada, and turns out they were right. I'm not going to get into all the Ray Fisher garbage with Hamada, but Hamada's ideas for what he wanted to do with the DC universe absolutely sucked. So here you have everyone, whether you like BVS or Man of Steel, those people who don't like Snyder, it's like everyone agreed Henry Cavill was an amazing Superman. Why you wouldn't want him to come back, especially after he got super hot with The Witcher, is like just ridiculous. So,
Yeah.
I mean, here it is. Rock stated it, and then this article kind of proves it that he had been going to that regime, the old regime, for years to say, Henry Cavill, Superman, let's do this. And they were saying no. Their big idea was to kill Cavill off screen in The Flash and have Supergirl and Batman, or Batgirl, be the new Superman and Batman going forward for the DC universe. Huh?
What do you think Dwayne Johnson thought about that when he was hearing that idea?
Knowing The Rock, he thought that was the biggest joke he's ever heard. And whatever you think of The Rock, whether he's a hype guy or whatever, or he's not that great of an actor, he is really a DC fan. I mean, he legitimately is.
Yeah.
Especially Superman. That's his guy. And he said it in the recent interview. He's like, hey, basically, this is the whole goal. I mean, he wants to introduce Black Adam, obviously, and him be a part of it, but it's like, We want Superman back in a big way.
Let's go jump into this a little bit. It's on comic book movie. That's where I saw this first really out in the public. Is that who you saw it first from?
Yeah, that's where I saw it. I mean, if you want to go to like the Hollywood Reporters, who's reporting it, and then a lot of these great, better known websites are reporting it on it also. So yeah, I
How,
mean,
so how big of a deal is it that we're getting both James Gunn and Matt Reeves being said that they're working on projects?
yeah, it's all pretty big, and I guess you could say one concerning thing in the article is since they haven't officially named the Kevin Feige of the DCU yet,
Mm,
that a lot of these big name guys like The Rock, Matt Reeves, James Gunn, and maybe even a little bit of J.J. Abrams still are buying real estate. You know, they're buying DC real estate and trying to stake their flag on certain areas.
okay.
And so, but I feel like that article sort of wanted to paint a picture that they're not that organized, when in a sense, I know Zaslav and this Mike DeLuca, who is the head of the whole picture scheme, but is probably just going to end up the DC head, which isn't a bad thing because he's a DC fan. So he can probably do it. In fact, he was producing Suicide Squad 2 before James Gunn came in and took it over. He had a whole nother storyline where the Suicide Squad was going after Black Adam. But anyway, you know, so I think this is a really great thing because you can have The Rock doing his Black Adam JSA stuff that's going
Yeah.
to cross pollinate with Henry Cavill's Superman, and then you can have James Gunn over here doing his wacky stuff that's still DC, that's still the DCEU. I love Suicide Squad.
I did too.
I like James Gunn a lot. I love Peacemaker. You know, it's weird if my wife loves it. That says something because you're grabbing that, you know, regular audience type person.
The one thing that was so great about it is that you could just sit and watch it and have fun. There
Yeah,
was no like backstories that you had to understand. You didn't even really care. This is funny right from the
yeah.
beginning.
I mean, it was good, and the fun. And what I like about James Gunn is, if you remember the new Lone Ranger movie with Johnny Depp, and then the Green Hornet movie with Seth Rogen. It's like, wow, they took those lead characters and they were bumbling fools the whole movie. They didn't have any skills. Whereas like Star Lord and Peacemaker are kind of idiots, but they're capable. You
Yeah,
know, they still kick ass. They can
yeah.
still do their job. It's just they're kind of Neanderthals too at the same time. So I like how he balances like, hey, it's funny, but we're also going to have capable action and they're going to be cool at the same time.
Obviously, before we jump into Man of Steel 2 and what I want you to talk about on that, let's jump into James Gunn real quick about what do you think is going to happen in the next Suicide Squad, and has John Cena gotten popular enough that we don't have to have Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn?
Yeah, you know, the only thing we know 100% for sure is we're getting Peacemaker 2. And we do
Okay.
know that James Gunn is developing two other series. As far as we know, those are still happening even with the merger. One was Amanda Waller centric, and one is something else.
Okay.
And so now we've got a movie that he's developing. So there are some unanswered questions like, well, what are these three properties? I think the safe bet is two of them. One could be Checkmate with like Amanda Waller's running Checkmate, which has been a long DC property. It's kind of like a Shield
Yeah, you're gonna
DC.
have to explain that a little bit because I'm not familiar with Checkmate at all.
Yeah, it's an organization. It's a governmental organization that deploys superpowered allies or agents When they first started, they all had their own code name. Like they were soldiers. They had these gold costumes. One was a knight or a rook or whatever, and they'd go. They were kind of nameless, and they just went out and did whatever the higher ups like Amanda Waller told them to. Then they would start working with hot agents. Peacemaker was one of them. Vigilante was one of them. They had a big to do in it. This is in the '80s version. Then they had a
So
character called Manhunter that they deployed, and a female assassin named Blackthorn. And
okay.
so they did a lot of that in the '80s, and it's had a couple incarnate in different variations throughout the years. This last one was one Mike Brian Michael Bendis did, and I haven't even read that yet. They had the female Manhunter in that. Green Arrow was a part of it. The Question. So look up a character called Mark Shaw, Manhunter. He was a big part of all of that too.
Well, my question is, okay, so this interests me right away that I just saw this photo. Um, you got Green Arrow, you got Bane, you have look at the bottom left.
Yeah, we got
That's
Catman.
yeah, and then you
Yep.
have Deadshot. I mean, every single one of those characters interests me a lot. Is this something that we could actually get, especially with how popular Green Arrow got?
Yeah, I think there's a real possibility that, like I said, Checkmate, and then the second one is this Secret Six. Secret Six screams James Gunn to me because they're all these dysfunctional villains.
Mm,
That they kind of become a family. I mean, again, very James Gunnish. So I think you could potentially get Will Smith back as Deadshot. He is a huge part of Secret Six. You have Bane. You could introduce Catman, who has a pretty nice following. King Shark is always in there. Ragdoll. Scandal Savage, who's the daughter of Vandal Savage. So if I think I really do believe Secret Six is at least one of his projects he's
and
developing.
see that, in my opinion, King Shark went over big time.
Oh
Everybody
yeah,
loved him.
yeah,
Deadshot is already, I think that went over well. And like you said, Will Smith said he wanted to play Deadshot again.
yeah,
And then Bane, holy crap. I mean, one of the top villains ever, in my opinion, in
yeah.
comics.
And Dave Bautista's done playing Drax. He says he would want to play Bane, so it's like that
Oh
seems
my
like a
God, that
no-brainer.
would be a perfect fit for that.
Yeah, that would be a no-brainer.
And it goes with James Gunn perfectly.
Yeah.
Mm,
So, I mean, and here's another property that someone mentioned today. This is more of me wishing, but how cool would it be for James Gunn to make a blue and gold movie or series where we have Booster Gold and Ted Cord together?
yeah.
A buddy comedy action. I think James Gunn's style fits Booster Gold to a T.
The hard part is what they've already acted like they were trying to do with Blue Beetle.
Yeah, I know. How are you going to tie that into Jaime if you still had Ted? Yeah, it may be a wish fulfillment there, but you could still do something with time travel. Maybe in the new Blue Beetle. The rumor is in the new Blue Beetle movie is that Ted's already dead in the movie, and so
Mm,
maybe Booster could go back in time and grab Ted. I don't know. There's all kinds of cool ideas.
interesting.
So
Interesting.
that's got a lot of good stuff. I mean, James Gunn, I like him having his little corner over here of doing his thing. I think that's great. It's a nice balance.
But you don't think he's ready to be the face of DC like Kevin Feige?
No, I really don't. I think James Gunn works best in his realm. I think he knows a lot of these characters. Sometimes his interpretation of them is way different, but a lot of times it works. It works more often than it doesn't. So I would prefer to see him stay in his corner and do his thing and be successful with that and be a part of the whole plan, but not be the head of it.
I'd want him to be one of the top guys though, because and
Yeah,
he also needs to know that he is, because of what he can bring to the table is is phenomenal in my opinion. He can go overboard on the some things, but if he can stick with the type of Peacemaker and all that kind of genre,
Yeah,
I think it will blow it out of the park. And I just always have thought this, and I'm not saying anything bad about Marvel because I like Marvel too, but DC has some characters that are just so much more interesting, in my opinion, that could just, if they could start doing these right, I
yeah,
mean, it could be huge.
yeah. Say what people are like, oh, DC's too overpowered or they're not relatable, and well, I mean, maybe you can say that about some of the bigger characters, but their bench is way deeper than Marvel's, in my opinion, and their bench is that's where some of their most interesting characters are.
Yeah,
Whereas, Marvel was able to have success with Ant-Man, Guardians, and all that, which is great. But DC, in my opinion, has that a deeper bench even than Marvel. So,
yeah. All right, I want to get to this now. I know
oh
this
yeah,
is what you want to talk about. What do you want to see in Man of Steel 2? Let's not talk about him appearing in Black Adam. I don't really
right.
even want to talk about if he is going to make an appearance in Flash. I want to talk about what everybody thinks should have been done a long time ago, and that's Man of Steel 2.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many possibilities. I do think we can rule out Zack Snyder coming back to direct this.
What?
He, I think he's going to be too busy. I
I,
really do.
did you just say Zack Snyder sucks and you don't want to see him with Superman anymore?
And I never, well, some of his fans totally suck ass, but no, I mean, if he came back, I'd be fine. I want to see Zach. If Zach ever comes back, and we'll get back to Superman in just a second. If Zach does come back, I want to see him stick with Justice League 2 and 3.
Mm,
I let him finish that storyline or go to the new God's dark side. I like to see that. I am more interested in seeing a different director come in and make this sequel with Henry Cavill. They expressed interest in Christopher McQuarrie, and I got to say, if they could pull that off, that would be a phenomenal choice. Absolutely phenomenal.
give me some background about who he is and what has he done.
He's directed the last 3 Mission Impossible movies, and in
Okay.
fact, he had a pitch with Henry Cavill. Here's another black eye on the old administration. You are an idiot that you have Christopher McQuarrie come to you with Henry Cavill for a pitch with Superman. And to boot, you maybe even had Tom Cruise as Hal Jordan to add to that movie. And you turn it down. You turn it down.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's
That doesn't
insane.
make sense.
Yeah, it's insane. So, they have the Mission Impossible sequels I know he worked forever on the one that hasn't come out yet, and they've been filming the other one back to back. So he's going to be tied up with that for a while. But Henry Cavill is a little tied up with The Witcher still too. So I think you get the writers on first, get the story, and then I think everyone it could line up. That's who I'd like to see come on board and direct that movie. We'll see. He's
Now,
obviously the top of their list.
now the storyline. What do you want?
Hmm. What do I want? Well, I think it's a safe bet we're going to get Supergirl in the movie with him because she will be introduced in The Flash. And I think everyone really wants to see Brainiac. It's
I did.
time.
Okay, I'm good with that.
I think it's time that we do a proper, really killer version of Brainiac, and make that uh, a, that's what we want to see. I think Brainiac. Maybe you throw in Lobo as kind of a wild card, and you have that way. There's 2 super-powered mega people to fight both Superman and Supergirl, and I think you keep it real centric, and it's a little lighter, not funny or goofy like Love and Thunder or any of that garbage. But you're not maybe as heavy thematically as Man of Steel. He's definitely in this movie. He's established. He's Superman. Everyone loves him. There's no, oh, we don't know about him. Nope. He's Superman. We love him. He's inspirational,
Yeah.
and we have that. That's what everyone wants to see. I know that's what Henry Cavill wants to do, and I guarantee you, without knowing this for a fact, but I guarantee you that's what The Rock wants as well. I suspect his production company will play a part in this movie, also.
I do not want to see the dark side of Superman anymore.
Mm,
I don't want to go through
nope.
the whole, you know,
No.
weighing this or weighing that. He is a good
No.
dude. He's patriotic. He stands for justice. And like you said, we don't need any backstory. Just go straight into something.
No. Oh, and they won't. It'll be just. I think it's going to be like it's going to be all systems go. And I think I agree. No one wants to see the not that he was mopey, but just the conflicted,
Yeah.
maybe blah blah blah. And after you watch the Snyder cut and you saw all three movies together, you're like, there was a journey. And then at the end of the Snyder cut, it's like he's back and he's Superman and everyone wanted him back. And so that storyline is done. We don't need to go back to that. Now it's on to inspirational Superman that we all want to see.
Yep. I'm so with you there. And if they can get Brainiac, get away from Lex Luthor. Let's
Yeah,
get let's get somebody new. I don't want Zod.
no.
Just just
No,
something
no.
all the way new. Because Brainiac, do you think Brainiac has the potential of being a big villain enough for Justice League 2? Or do you think that's still leaning towards even like a Black Adam or something in that situation?
Yeah, no, that's all real interesting to see what they're going to do with that. I mean, I think Brainiac is a Justice League level threat. But you want to have a big, big threat that Superman faces. So that's why it just seems like this is a no-brainer. We saw a very, very interesting Brainiac on the Krypton show, but it's a sci-fi show. You've never had Brainiac on the silver screen with a super high budget, and I think he would be hands down the one that most people want to see. Let's give the fans what they want. That's what The Rock wants to do. And I think this Zaslav and his people are the same. They're like, look, let's give the DC fans what they want, and most of the common person is gonna. That's what they're gonna want to see
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
So
and I personally think you don't even worry about the Justice League 2 right now.
I don't
You
think
go
so either.
big and bad for Man of Steel 2. You got to get it where Batman is. I
Yeah.
mean, Superman 100% is right there, even neck and neck with Batman, and he's got to get there. And you got the actor to do it.
I mean, let's think about this too for DC. If Black Adam can hit or at least be a solid double, because he is a brand new character, if that movie can be a solid double, and they're doing reshoots right now with The Flash and Aquaman, and then you have Shazam also, which is good to go. You have three super great. You can really start pushing DC. You've got Blue Beetle filmed, and that's
Wonder
supposedly
Woman 3.
test. And then now you've got Wonder Woman 3. The script is almost done. I think it'll be back to form for them. I think it's going to be way way better. If you get Superman, Wonder Woman back. You had Flash, Super or Aquaman. Man, you're in a good spot. DC's going to be firing on all cylinders, and really, if they can do this, they can take some wind out of Marvel's sails here,
Yeah.
especially right now.
Yeah, because I don't think there's as much interest right now with Marvel. And I don't want to get into that gigantically right now, but
No, no,
DC, if they would go with the main five
yeah,
and really push those main five, people in Marvel are really hurting and wanting Captain America. They're wanting Thor. They're wanting Iron Man,
yeah.
and you don't have them. So,
No, well, you had Thor, but you don't have the real Thor.
right.
you have comedy Thor. So yeah, you're right. Uh, People have taken to a few of the new characters, but not all of them, and uh, it's like, yeah, they're a little vulnerable right now. I believe Feige will. You got Secret Wars and all that coming up. They're gonna Fantastic Four. They're gonna bounce back. Wolverines and Deadpool 3. They're gonna get it back together. But conversely, you could have serious competition from DC if they can pull this out.
Yeah. And
Uh,
competition ends up bringing out the best in both. So I'm good with either.
yeah. So my question though is this, and I don't know if it's what we want to talk about next. That was part of this announcement. Is of course we are still getting a Matt Reeves Batman sequel, which we knew we were,
Yeah.
and but it also announced that not only are we getting the Penguin series that should start shooting in January, they're going to develop movies or shows about villains like Scarecrow, Professor Pig, and then the one I really want to see, Clayface. I think he is the one Batman villain that everyone's clamoring for.
Yeah. I think the one out of that. Now, I'm not talking about a Batman movie. I'm talking about just a series on itself. If
Yeah,
they can do Scarecrow right in a
yeah,
series by itself, I'm telling you, holy crap, they can knock it out of the park
yeah,
on that series. And I hope and hope and hope they do that right.
yeah. We haven't seen a as much as I liked the actor who played Scarecrow in Batman Begins. Visually it just didn't work really. I mean, I liked what they were going for. Visually, he looked amazing in the Gotham series, but he was kind of a non-factor.
Right.
And then I don't know what the abomination was in the Titans last season. That was terrible,
I
terrible.
I just think right now what is successful and what I'm actually wanting more of in Marvel is the side they're going with on the spooky and the monsters. And
Yes,
I know Scarecrow is not a monster, but he has that feel of spooky, scary, and that theme could go so far with him on how he can
yeah,
torture people's minds and
yeah. It'd be a great like pseudo horror movie, really. I mean, I
mhm.
don't know how hardcore they'd want to make it, whether it be R or not, but you could. I mean, there's some great PG-13 horror movies. I think if they were that's one way you could really separate that movie. Like, well, why do I need to see a Scarecrow movie? It's like, well, because it's actually a horror movie.
Like
So,
almost like
yeah,
Joker.
yeah. So, um, I think this is all very exciting. However, there's the one glaring issue with Batman, where at least if you can get all this other stuff together with the other characters, they're all in the same universe outside
Yeah.
of a Joker, who we know is its own thing. And so the Batman is as well, but what does that mean for the DCEU Batman? Where do we what are we doing? That was the one glaring like, well, we knew Matt Reeves was going to have a sequel, but what does this mean for Batman in the greater DCEU?
This is where you and I think are actually going to disagree.
Sure.
I think I am more interested in the Batman with Matt Reeves than I am Batflick.
Yeah.
And I think you got a really good Batman with Robert Pattinson. Not saying
Excuse
Ben
me.
Affleck is a bad one, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying the vibe that you can create now with that character and you're going to have to figure out a way to bring that together. I really think you're going to have to
hmm
stick with the Batman. I think it's too confusing, and right now you don't need confusing in the DCEU if you're really trying to push it.
Yeah, and I think Batman is going to be a point of confusion because signs are pointing that they're going to let Matt Reeves do his own thing with the Batman. And so maybe it's a way to give some fans their cake and eat it too, because there are a lot of Batman fans that want Batman just Batman.
Yeah,
Like they love Batman, they might like DC, but they think Batman just works better on his own and not in the greater DCU. He just should be over here. But it does sound like at the end of the Flash, spoiler, you have two Batmen that are in the DCEU. You have Affleck is still alive as Batman, and now Keaton is
Hmm.
in this combined universe as an older Batman. And I think they're gonna they're gonna do something with Affleck as Batman. Whether I don't know if I could see them doing a movie or he's just gonna be in movies other with other heroes.
Well, Aquaman 2, he's in it.
Yeah, we know he's in that, and he's gonna be in the Flash, obviously. So I think they're gonna have something with Affleck Batman for the DCEU, and then over here you can have Reeves Batman, and you have that whole solo Batman universe. I think that's what they're going to try to do. I don't know how confusing that will be for the general public, but we'll see.
In my opinion on that, then I don't think you can have any standalone Batman with Ben Affleck.
I don't see how you do that either. I mean, and they seem to be getting away from this on HBO Max. It would make sense maybe to do an HBO Max project where it's like Batman versus Deathstroke, and you make it some kind of, maybe don't even call it Batman, you call it War of some, I don't know. And you
Yeah.
put that on HBO Max and you keep Pattinson Reeves cinematic. But I don't know. That's the one question I'm like, I'm not sure what they're going to do about Batman outside of we're getting more Reeves.
And I like the feel of the Reeves, and I like the feel of the, how Colin Farrell did the Penguin. I love the
Mm,
Riddler. Man, if they can do a halfway decent Joker and a Clayface and Scar or Scarecrow, I mean, it would just start adding up after all those villains. So I could see if that was very well done, it could keep growing on its own. But
yeah.
eventually, if Superman, Wonder Woman, Shazam, if all that is hitting at the same time, how can you not try to combine them to make one
I
thing?
That's just that's the $1 million question. Are you going to keep the Batman Reeves? If you're introducing Clayface, are you not getting a little fantastical?
Yeah.
Which was my one complaint about the movie. I think it's great. I just feel like we've already done that with the Nolan's movies where you had the gritty realism. It's like, well, I don't mind the dark. I like the darker take. I just feel like maybe we've been there, done that with the ultra realistic. Um, but again, maybe you keep those two separate and people get both Batmans how they want. The gritty realistic, the more comic book
Mm.
Justice League version who's fighting Darkseid alongside Superman. So,
If we do get the two separate ones, the one thing that I would love to see in the Matt Reeves part is you got to start establishing Dick Grayson. You got to start with Jason Todd. You
yeah.
need that. In my opinion, I would love to see a whole another spinoff of almost like Gotham Knights, where it's Red Hood, Robin,
Yeah.
Nightwing, Batgirl. They're all working together to try to help Gotham or something because Batman's gone, or he's just too busy fighting Scarecrow. I don't know, but
Yeah. I
those
mean,
those
yeah.
characters are huge.
Yeah, you've got this huge family. I think it would be great to have a show where you just focus on the sidekicks, for lack of a better word. Batman can still be around. It's just that they're having their own adventures. You just don't see Batman. He's over here doing whatever. But like you said, Batgirl, Nightwing, Damian Wayne, Red Hood, Tim Drake, the Signal, especially Azrael,
Yeah,
the Spoiler, Cassandra Cain, all those great characters. You could have them doing something. Yeah, I mean they really do need to really emphasize his sidekicks, and I
and I
love
don't
Dick
want it to.
Grayson, so
I don't want it to be like Titans, and I don't have. I like Titans.
yeah.
I don't have anything against them, but there's such a good base of just Batman gallery people that it could be its own thing.
Oh yeah, I mean you like I could probably prattle off a few more. Ghostmaker, Clown Hunter, those are some new ones, but it's like the Batman. side characters just keep mounting up, and a lot of them are really good.
Yeah.
Most of them. So yeah.
Yep.
Now there was that other bit of news too with this report. I mean, it just keeps going on and
It
on.
does.
So I mean, here's what was shocker to me. We know the Flash has been a troubled project,
Now the
to
project
say
that
the least.
technically hasn't been.
Yeah, right. So I mean, they're going to release this movie. It's going to happen. Even if Ezra goes to jail, they're releasing this movie.
You eventually have to, and I
Yeah.
think the longer you wait, the weirder it gets.
Yeah, they're going to release it. He's going to be in the movie. They make the sequel. It will not be Ezra Miller. It will be somebody else. But here was what was a shocker. They have already a completed script for the Flash sequel. That kind of blew my mind. Like, wow, you are already have a script ready to go to film a sequel. And this movie isn't even coming out until June.
You know what? You want to know what my opinion is on that? Is I think you have to have. I think it would be very wise to almost have the sequel already done when you release the first Flash movie, and you almost in less than 6 months release the sequel right after it to get
Yeah,
that out of the way. It's flushed down the toilet.
right.
We're moving on. Here's what we got. Even though it's probably going to be, I'm hearing a decent movie.
Yeah, I still say there's if Ezra can kind of get out of this little felony burglary charge, uh, and he's quiet and there isn't any more garbage, you're talking it's going to be all the way till June. Even if he doesn't do the press, it's like things will have died down, and they have already died down a lot. But
Yeah,
and if this thing is as good as they say it is, people are going to be like, "Oh yeah, I want to see this. I don't know anything about this Ezra guy. Who cares? I want to see the Flash." So
right.
I think there's still a really good opportunity for it to make a lot of money, be successful, and they'll just recast. Whether it's if it makes $1 billion, they're still going to recast Ezra. I think.
Well, and then here's the $1 billion question. The great gallery that Batman has, the Flash has almost as good in my opinion, and some
Yeah,
people would say better.
yeah,
So you have to, I think, get this right. You've already invested enough to get it right, but the one thing they're missing still, and I don't know why they haven't tried it. I don't know if it's the whole Ryan Reynolds thing or not, but they got to do something with Green Lantern.
yes. You are right. That was another. They didn't mention Affleck, and then not talking about Green Lantern was like, oh, I would have loved to have heard that. I mean, because the last we know this for sure, is that they have not canceled the Green Lantern Corps series, the one that's going to feature Alan Scott, Guy Gardner, Jessica Cruz. That is
But they're
still
not talk
going.
but they're not talking about it that much.
They weren't talking about it that much. You're right, but they have said that the powers that be have not canceled it. It's still in development. Now the rumor for Green Lantern is that they want to do the series, and then they're going to consecutively develop a movie that features Hal Jordan and John Stewart, and then you'll
Mm.
have those two Green Lantern properties complement each other. I hope that's true. Um, insiders have said that Green Lantern is a priority with this new regime. Other than just Superman, they recognize Green Lantern needs to get out there. So I hope those rumors are true, and I believe them.
I just think Green Lantern is a character that has to be introduced before a Justice League 2.
Yes, and that's why if for some miracle you got Zack Snyder to come back for a Justice League 2, it's still a few years away because I think you're right, and DC would be smart to do this to get a lot of their characters. If Flash hits, Aquaman's better, Aquaman's good. The Wonder Woman sequel's an improvement. Superman's finally back. You've at least got Batman with Reeves, Shazam, Blue Beetle, and get Green Lantern back on the screen. Get them all, in a good spot and then do that Justice League movie.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what they screwed up before. You had, they jumped the gun and rushed into that Justice League movie that they all got panicked about, and then we ended up getting what we got. So, I think those things are happening. And then don't forget, they did announce the Constantine sequel with Keanu Reeves.
Yep.
And guess what? That is supposed to actually take place in the DCEU. So it's almost like you can retroactively go watch the first one and it'll be part of the DCEU. There's nothing in that movie says it couldn't have been in the DCEU. So I think that's pretty exciting, and I think
Yeah.
that can open up the door for the mystical side, especially since we're getting Doctor Fate.
Yep.
Um, I'm still holding my breath so I can sometimes see Etrigan, the Demon, Dead Man, Phantom Stranger. I mean,
Okay, so you just brought up Dr. Fate, and I'm going to ask you this because we are going to watch it on Thursday.
yes.
What are you scared of? What are you hoping happens after a successful Black Adam if it's going to be successful? And then is there a character in it that you could see them building on besides Black Adam?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously Dr. Fate. I mean, he's the one in all the reviews that have been out already. The I know the embargo lifts tomorrow night, but people have been spilling everything. And there isn't one review that says Dr. Fate isn't a standout. Everyone's saying Dr. Fate is the standout, followed closely by Hawkman.
Okay.
So those two characters seem to really be hitting Dr. Fate especially. So yeah, I mean, I am hoping this hits because we need it to for the greater DCU. But I'd love to see them do something with Doctor Fate. I mean, I'd love a movie, but I'll take a series. Either way, and the same for Hawkman.
Now, before we move on to that, then what are you worried about with Black Adam? Because man, the hype's there. I think this even pushed the hype a little bit more.
Yeah,
But man, everything that I'm seeing and reading, people are saying it's not going to be like 1 second you read that this is going to be The Rock's biggest opening weekend ever, and then the next one they're saying it's not going to be.
yeah. It does seem to be outside of us DC fans. I'm not seeing a lot of hype with the general audience. Uh, I mean, the character, as no one's ever heard of Black Adam, but you would think since it's The Rock that he would generate a little more. But let's go back again. His solo movies, where he is the solo star, he tends to open movies in the 40 to 50 range, unless he's a part of a big project like Fast and Furious or G.I. Joe or whatever. Then there's a lot more money. But him as the main draw, he's 40, 50 million dollar opening weekend. So yeah, I mean that's the part that actually has me very nervous that this thing opens to 50 million. I mean, that's probably not flop category, but it's also just pretty like eh. So if this movie only makes, 400, 500 million worldwide, what does that mean for all these DC plans? I hope that they would say, well, if we at least got some good critical reviews and generated at least some hype, we have something to build on, and we're not going to not make a Superman movie because of
Right.
Black Adam. I mean, I can't imagine a scenario where they say, well, they didn't watch Black Adam, so they must not want to see Superman. Like, well, don't. No. But, studio heads are pretty stupid, so, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm not worried. I am worried.
Do you think it would have been better for Black Adam to be introduced on a other movie or something first before he got his own movie, or is this just what we should have done anyway with Black Adam?
No, I mean, I almost can't blame an executive if you have Dwayne Johnson coming to you and You're like, well, yeah, I'm gonna make this movie. It's The Rock. But it's like, yeah, it would have been way better to introduce him in something else. Like, holy crap, that's The Rock. Who's this character? The Black Adam. He was awesome. Then you make his solo movie. That would have been the much better way to do it. But again, that's the old regime who made all these dumbass decisions, and that's where we're at. So,
I
um,
think I think a huge thing could happen though here. I think with people who the not knowing who Black Adam is, I really, really am looking forward to Black Adam going. I mean, he's going to do very well popping off the screen. And I
yeah,
think he has a very interesting backstory about how he became who he is that I'm hoping people get really interested and then they dig deeper and that allows Dr. Fate to get more interested. And then Hawkman is a great character. And I want to
yeah.
see Hawkman really do something. I can see a series more with him, but I'm hoping the reverse that it gets so much hype that people get even more interested and want more.
Yeah, and maybe it'll be a muted opening, but it'll have a nice drop, or the word of mouth is like really good. There's no movies opening up until Black Panther, which is like not for another 3 weeks. I mean, it has 3 weeks to itself pretty much. So I'm hoping that makes a difference. There's been no movies at the theater until last weekend with Halloween. It's just been uh wasteland of one or two movies here and there that are at the theaters, so the theaters are dying again. So it's like, well, maybe between Halloween getting a
Yeah.
little bump and
Right
Black
before
Adam
Black
will,
and right
yeah,
before Black Panther.
we'll get some people wanting to come back to the theater. The pre-sales aren't amazing for Black Adam. Some areas are selling out, others are just, Morbius level actually.
Ooh,
So, but I think it could have a lot of walk-up business. Some movies are like, well, You know, I people are probably snatching up Wakanda Forever tickets left and right because there's all this history with it. But Black Adam may be more of one like, oh yeah, let's go see Black Adam. I'm not gonna bother to go buy a ticket ahead of time. We'll just go and get one.
all right. Lincoln is saying a couple things, and I want to get what your opinion is on this. So he says he has a cousin that works for New Line Cinema, and Black Adam versus Shazam will come out first, and Superman probably won't fight Black Adam.
Well, I mean, my cousin doesn't work for New Line, so you got me there. But I mean, The Rock has stated that's his whole goal. You're right. He also has stated Shazam and Black Adam do need to fight. So if I think that will happen if this movie can hit, but I'm pretty sure The Rock, his agent, who's Henry Cavill's agent, they've got him back. That's got to be on the planning stages. Man of Steel 2 is first. That is going to happen
Yeah.
first, and then I think we're going to see Black Adam fight Superman somewhere. I think he'll
I,
end up in another movie. Like if Black Adam doesn't hit that well, I still think we see in some type of other movie Black Adam and Superman going at it.
Here's what I think. I think Shazam. I like Shazam. I really like that movie,
Yeah, yeah.
but I don't think it's a big enough movie to have a showdown of Henry Cavill as Superman coming in and helping Shazam fight Black Adam. I don't think that's going to happen. Um, but
I agree.
if
I
those
love
three,
Shazam though.
yeah, I do too. But if those three do happen, it's either going to be in a Black Adam 2 or it's going to be in a Superman or even a Justice League type of.
Yeah, yeah. Justice League, Suicide Squad type mashup movie. Yeah, I really do because as much as it makes more sense for us fans that Shazam fights Black Adam. That's
Right.
what it should be, but you're right. It's kind of like, oh hey, we're hyping up this huge fight, but instead of having Iron Man go up against Captain America. We're having Iron Man versus Ant Man. You know what I mean? It's like box office wise, they were pretty similar, and so it's like whether you agree or not, it's just Shazam's lower tier popularity wise, while still being great. Just like I love the first Ant Man movie, but it was lower.
Right.
So it's like, oh hey, we're gonna have Robert Downey Jr. fight not Captain America, Ant Man.
Yeah, not gonna
And
happen.
yeah, so I think it will happen if everything goes how they want it to. But I think the hype is going to be mostly with him versus Superman. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it's all gonna. We'll know more next Monday about how things look. So
Could you imagine at the end of Shazam 2 that like a cutscene or something at the end that they're fighting Shazam and Black Adam and Henry Cavill comes in as Superman to help. And then that's going to lead into something else.
yeah,
How
no
big
that
would that be?
yeah that. I mean, there's some way you could. I mean, there's ways to do it. And really, when you talk about Black Adam versus Superman, I think you throw in Shazam in that movie. I really do.
I think that'd be awesome.
Because I mean, Superman's going to beat Black Adam, but he is vulnerable to magic, whereas Shazam is not. So I mean, that's why you've had the two of them take on Black Adam at times because Superman is a little
Hmm.
vulnerable. So I mean, there's all those scenarios, and I'm sure they're working on it right now. They've got everything they're planning on what they can do if these things take off. So
I have to agree with this from Lincoln. And Lincoln, by the way, thanks for
yeah, thanks for chiming in.
Henry
Appreciate it.
Cavill will be Superman for the foreseeable future. Now, the question is on what is the definition of foreseeable future? And in my hopes, it's over 10 years.
Yeah, easily. I mean, Henry Cavill's 10 years older than he was when we first got him, but he still looks great. I think he's got a solid 10 years in him to portray Superman. I agree. And here's the thing, guys. We don't know what's going to happen for sure, but he didn't come back and do this cameo in Black Adam as a one-off. He's
Yeah.
back. He's signed for whatever. We know now that the Man of Steel 2 is in development, so he's getting a huge payday for that. I'm sure it includes a Black Adam versus Superman or Justice League 2 and 3 or a Trinity movie. I don't know, but there's more than just another Superman movie. I'm sure it's a nice little paycheck for him.
Oh God, I hope so. That'd be amazing for all of us.
Yeah. And I think I mean, man, I think the wheels are turning here. I think before the end of the year, we're going to have a clear indication of maybe what's going on. Or there was a rumor today that WB wants to do a fandom event in the near future, but it's not going to
Mm,
be just DC fandom. It's going to be a WB fandom where they'll talk about DC, they'll do Harry Potter, they'll do the Discovery stuff, and make it this huge WB event.
that'd
And
be cool.
we'll get a lot of DC announcements, solid announcements then too.
I'd be for
Fingers
that.
crossed. Yeah. So let's hope, man.
Now, how much longer? We've talked about the age of Henry Cavill. How
Yeah.
much longer can The Rock really do what The Rock does?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he looks old now at all. I'm not saying that. But I can't even remember what movie came up the other day, one of his earlier movies. It's like he has aged. I mean, it happens to all of us. Uh and the what he did to his body for Black Adam, he can't sustain that.
Yeah.
You're right. That's a good question too. How long can he do it? I mean, granted, he's The Rock, and he can do it better than we can. But at some point, but hey, you know what? Guess what? Hugh Jackman says, "Man, I cannot do this Wolverine body anymore. I got to retire." Well, money talks because he's training right now for Deadpool.
But at the same time, I'm telling you what I'm always on this as a I mean, it is what it is. If he's around for 10 more years, Dwayne Johnson's going to be in the mid 60s.
How old is
Isn't
The
he
Rock?
52? I
This is a great question because I do not know how old The Rock is.
I'm gonna look it up.
I bet he's I
He's
bet
50.
he's 50.
So is he
So
gonna
he'll
be
be
able to look
60.
like that at 60?
Well, if
Uh,
anyone
I-
can do it, it's The Rock. But yeah, I would imagine he's like, we got to make this happen quick.
yeah, and that's what actually excites me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be urgency, not to the point of being sloppy or unplanned or uncoordinated, but I think you have a lot of people now involved. James Gunn, Rock, Mike DeLuca, Matt Reeves. These guys all really care about. They seem to anyway. DC characters, and I think if you could get everyone on board like it seems to be, you could make things happen quickly, but and efficiently.
But what
And
worries me, and we've said this from day one that we've talked about this, what worries me is age because every
yeah,
character that we're talking about besides Gal Gadot is over 40.
yeah. I mean, there's
John Cena's over 40.
Momoa.
Momoa's over 40. Cavill is 38, 39.
He's 30. He is almost 40. Yeah, 38, I think.
So I know it works well with Robert Downey Jr., but Robert Downey Jr. was the oldest. Everybody
Yeah.
else was much younger than him.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of time. I mean, DC, because of their poor decisions, have created this situation, and it is true. It's like I'm glad you guys are getting everyone back, but you also need to move quickly, not
Wasting time.
foolishly. Don't act foolishly, but you do have to make. There needs to be some urgency here. You got to
Yep.
make some deals. You got to make some things happen. Uh, and I think they have to realize that. I mean, they're not. If we're talking about that, they are. They're not stupid in that sense. I mean, they know how old they are. They know how many years they've got to do this, what the window looks like.
But we've
So,
said this millions of times too. How long would it make from start to finish to make a Justice League 2?
yeah, the Justice League does come into play. Like, where I don't know where they're going to fit that in at. Yeah. And then we can criticize the old regime because they are idiots and they shot themselves in the foot. But I think that was the one thing they were trying to say is like, well, it's going to cost too much money to get all these people back. Let's just start from scratch, get someone young like Pattinson, and we'll have years and years with these actors in the role. Whereas if we go back to these other actors, that this is the problem a little bit of the age and the time.
Maybe that's what they're thinking about on
But
allowing.
but they also made the bright decision to say Michael Keaton will be the new Batman for the DCEU, and he's 71. So forget about age then. You got a senior citizen Batman.
Yeah, no kidding. Lincoln's asking to make a new Justice League 2, do they need a new Flash? Yes, 100%. And that is
Yeah.
almost political now more than anything. They
Yeah,
got
I
to
mean,
they got to move on from Ezra.
sadly, I think even if Ezra can turn it around within himself, I think it's like we've got to cut ties. We just have to.
Maybe that is what they're doing with Pattinson's Batman, the Batman, is they're creating like a whole nother universe over there. And as Pattinson's young still, 30, 35, no more than 35, right?
I'd say that's right.
So you can start establishing that, get good villains going, and make them young. And then all of a sudden, there's a Green Arrow that pops up that's young. There's a
Yeah.
um, Nightwing that's young. And now it starts popping up a whole different kind of thing.
Could be. That could be a very good idea. You could have your other multiverse universe there and spring Batman being the first hero and then slowly introduce other heroes and maybe you even get a Superman over there
Yeah,
someday. So
that'd be
yeah,
awesome.
I mean you have that like, hey, they'll age out over here on this side. You got these guys coming up and starting over here. It could be it could work.
Well, let's ask this to Lincoln. Do you like Robert Pattinson as Batman or Ben Affleck as Batman? And who would you want to see going forward? Because that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I sort of like the more I'm sitting here thinking about it, the more I'm sort of liking that thought process of establish Pattinson as Batman over here and just really work that.
Yeah. I mean, and they're for me though, and I think a lot of the Snyder fans, it's like there's this feeling of like, man, we never got. There's such a missed opportunity with Affleck as Batman. The whole, I think everyone in their mind just is wanting to see that Deathstroke versus Batman movie, whatever it is. It's like you got to give us that. We got to see this solo, at least one Batfleck movie, so we can feel like there's some closure and we can move on with Pattinson.
See, that's the problem. This is the problem right there, and I 100% agree with what Lincoln's saying. I like them both. That's
I
the
do too.
problem.
Yeah, that's they've created this problem. Now, as much as I like Henry Cavill, he's the greatest Superman. I told you even a little more than Christopher Reeve for me. But also, we don't talk about it a lot. But Tyler Hoechlin on Superman and Lois is a current Superman who also is great.
Yeah, he is.
So you do have your two biggest characters with two actors in the role at the same time, basically.
Yeah, I mean, true.
So there's a lot of ways you could go with this. I think we're going to get a lot more clarity, maybe even by the end of the year,
I'm
what their
excited.
plans are. I mean, today was a huge day if you're a DC fan. If there's anyone listening, get your tickets to Black Adam. Go see that movie more than one time, because we want to see this DC universe come together. And I think The Rock deserves a lot of credit
Mm.
for really spearheading this and helping this happen.
I'm with you 100%. I think it sounds great.
Yep, super excited.
I think that's about all I got. Anything
All
else?
right, man. Yeah, this has been good. This is all I got too. So fingers crossed. Hey, we're gonna try to go see Black Adam Thursday night and maybe even do a little review. So,
All right.
all right.
Catch you guys later.
Peace.